Unfortunately, the wind situation is going to be the same as it was last time. I took the little piece of tape off that I used yesterday. It didn't seem to make any difference in the wind noise, and it just kind of dimmed what I was saying. And it's quite windy today, and I don't have an external mic yet, so I can't promise that the sound will be very good, but I'm going for a walk anyway, and you're welcome to join me. I'm going to go over into Lakeview again today, but take a different route to get there. We'll walk down the Albert Street Bridge. Pretty nice day. It's +8, I think, Celsius. So let's see. Kickstarter update, 44% funded as of this morning. Some more small ones came in today. Still kind of in those still 23 days to go, but you know, you'd love to see it doing $1,000 a day so that you had lots of money by the time it was over to do the project. But I'm reasonably confident it'll get to the 15,000. Go down the alley here. Certainly hope so, because it's going to be a great end. Featuring a different author each day. Oh, there's a lot of wind now. I don't know if you can even hear me or not. Today's was interesting. Lisa Foyles is her name. And she's also an actress. She's best known for being part of the cast of, when she was a kid, of Nickelodeon's program All That. And she continues to do acting and voiceover work and hosting and all that. But she also wrote a middle grade novel called what's it called? Ash Ridley and the Phoenix, I think. I keep wanting to say In the Order of the Phoenix, but of course that's Harry Potter. Lots of wind here. Sorry. I am going to order some sort of external mic that hopefully will alleviate that problem. But don't have it yet. Oops. And again, trying to get just the right height on this thing. There's a lot of Anguses. We live on Angus Crescent. There's an Angus Street, and this is Angus Boulevard. Somehow Angus got several things named. So that's the Kickstarter. Oh, I know that wind's going to be bad. Oh well, turn off the sound if you need to. It's a lot windier than I thought it was. I was working on a nonfiction thing this morning. I mentioned it yesterday that it was due, so I got that done this morning. Taking a walk, and I hopefully will do some Tangled Stars riding. So we're headed over here to the Albert Street Bridge. I think my shoelace is trying to come untied, which is annoying. If you are watching this on Facebook and you leave comments, I won't see them at all now. I took off the app that was on there. I didn't like the way it looked on the screen. I couldn't read it anyway. So I took it off just to clear image of where I'm walking. I keep thinking we'll be done with ice. Not only was there a dog coming, but there was still a lot of ice and snow in that particular. Oh, by the way, if you've ever read The Shards of Excalibur, this is where Wally Knight lives. He's in the Shards of... Oh, I should walk down here. In the Shards of Excalibur, Wally Knight lives basically in the house over there in the corner. It's a different house. It doesn't look like that house, but that's where it's located. Wally is the boy of the two protagonists. Harry Ann is the teenage girl who discovers when walking around Wascana Lake, which we will not walk around today, but we will sometime. This watery staircase opens up into the lake. And when she goes down, discovers this apparition tells her that she's now the Lady of the Lake from King Arthur. And she has to find the scattered shards of Excalibur before Merlin can. Merlin's the bad guy. Although he's modern day guise is as Rex Major, which is kind of a computer guy. So anyway, Wally stumbles on this all happening, and he ends up on this quest too. So Wally lives right over there where I just showed, and Ariane lives over on the other side of the park. Actually on the other side of Balfour Collegiate that I walked by the other day. So one of these days, when it's nicer, things look better, I'm going to do a Shards of Excalibur walk to the actual locations featured in Song of the Sword, especially. They're in Regina a few times, but that's the one that has the most Regina-specific stuff in it. Well, I guess Twist of the Blade, the second one, features the tennis courts over by Balfour. We're on the Albert Street Bridge, sometimes called the longest bridge over the shortest body of water. I don't know that that's technically true of the whole world. Not much to see, but it does have these little scenic turnouts here, and then you can see there's the creek, and we walked along the path over there the other day, and we'll probably do so again. Because although I'm, for the hypothetical viewers of these things, I try to come up with new places to go, but there's only so many I'm going to be doing within walking distance of the house. So I don't normally walk over the bridge. It's noisy, and the cars go by and they throw up dust. And I wear contacts, and of course it's windy, which is going to make this all that stuff. Legislative building over there, Saskatchewan Legislative building. And again, we'll get closer to that on some future walk. You can't actually walk to the end of the bridge. You end up going down these little stairs. Or in this case, we'll take the ramp. I'm going to put off tying my shoe as long as possible. It's going to be awkward. Usually these shoelaces don't let it go, but it has today, it feels like. More ice and snow here still left in the shade. Excuse me. Okay, we'll cross at the light. We may stay on Albert for a little ways, then we're going to kind of zigzag back into Lakeview over here. Oh, I think I've got the light too, which is nice. If I walk fast. There we go. Made it across. Oh, I can see Facebook notes here, but I can see that there is one. I can't see what it says. I don't even know if it's a comment on here. I presume it is. Yeah, what does it say? I can't see what it says. I'm not going to wear my reading glasses while I walk around, so... Yes, that was somebody asking if I'd gotten a comment about covering the mic. Well, I did, but you can't actually put a thick sock over an iPhone. The microphone is like right up where the cameras are. So putting a thick sock over it would, kind of spoil the video as well. No, I need to get an external mic, which I will. Mic a blob of foam over it, and I intended to, but again, I didn't. I might try that tomorrow if I remember. I didn't think it was this windy. Well, there, I actually did manage to read Terry's comment there while I walked. I had to hold it up to a tree so it had a dark background. No, I think I am going to have to stop and tie the shoelace somehow before too long. So there's the legislative building over there. For those of you who are not from around here, one of our scenic sites. Quite grand for a province of 1 million people. But like most provinces, I thought it was going to be bigger than it turned out to be, what with, depression. That's influenced it. We'll go down another. No, we'll go this way. It starts zigzagging in. Yeah, and my shoelaces. Oh, good grief. That's a bad sidewalk. Well, we'll stay on Albert to start with. Also, I need to find there's a bench up here. Maybe I can tie my shoelace there. I'll have to take this off my wrist. There's a safety lanyard on my wrist. Somehow put it down without freaking it out about the fact that it's supposed to be trying to keep things level. I'll tie my shoelace. So we'll see how that goes. Not well. There we go. It did quite freak out and kept trying to move around and get itself level. Me for a minute. So that should be a smooth bit of professional camera work. Okay. Hopefully that stays put now. I could have turned, I guess what I should have done, I could have left the live stream running and turned off the Osmo 3 gimbal. Oh, one of the nicer houses along here. I've always liked this one. A lot of big houses down here on South Albert. Although South Albert goes much further south, but this was still South Albert when it was. But of course, when it was built, Albert was not as busy and noisy as it is now. When some of these houses were built, there's another big one over there. To the trees. Some of these you can only kind of see now. You can't really see them when the trees leaf out, which I'm not too far away from. We'll turn up McCallum here, I think. Get away from some of the traffic. And then maybe zigzag up towards Hill and then where that takes us. Yes, much quieter now. Also less wind. Just check out the sidewalks to decide which way I want to go. I remember several of these houses being in my historic walks of Regina and Moose Jaw. But again, without having the book with me and some way to look at it while I walk and hold this thing, it's very difficult to say anything about them because I don't remember. That was some time ago. Long enough ago that some of the houses that are in that book and buildings have been torn down since then. So if you're following along on Google Maps, we just came south of McCallum. We're walking south now on Angus Street. Not to be confused with Angus Crescent or Angus Boulevard. They had nice, well, big mature trees. It's terrible having immature trees. They make noise all night, partying, drinking, that kind of thing. Much better to have quiet, mature trees. It's a little tree humor for you. But again, if you're wondering, the wrappings around the trees are to keep insects from crawling up them. Hello. Hi.
Hello.
And yes, these are elm trees. We've still got them here in Regina. Dutch elm has not ever gotten a solid foothold and taken out a lot of trees as it did in so many places, like the town where my dad grew up. Oh look, it's another house with a turret. As I mentioned before, I love turrets. It's my medieval interest. Makes you feel like you're in a castle. Way for another block and then go on south again. Here's some birds. I haven't heard a woodpecker on this trip. Oh, they have those blocky, modern infill houses down here too. Look over there, there's one. Run into more ice and snow here, but if I'm careful. My foot's already gotten a little wet from stepping in a puddle. Or poodle, as I always called them. Oh, we got matching ones, one on either side. Nice broad streets down here. One of these down here, there was someone I used to come and practice. She was an accompanist. I came to her house and practiced a few times. I still did music festival when I first moved to Regina. I was still in my 20s. After a while, well, I don't believe there's any sort of age restriction. You can always go in the senior open class. People look at you funny. As you get older. People look at you funny as you get older anyway. And there's the wind again, sorry about that. Cross over. Just residential area this time. None of the historic buildings too much that I pointed out when I was down college and downtown yesterday. Probably won't walk downtown too often. I'm a little more self-conscious about carrying this thing down there. I do get sideways glances from people. Not exactly sure what I'm doing. Here's Hill. I'll walk down this way. Yeah, yesterday when you could see the comments directly on the screen of the feed, that's an app that I'm using, Prism Live Studio. It has a built-in app which allows you to do that, but I didn't actually like it. I couldn't read it and I didn't like the way it looked when I looked at the video afterwards. So that wasn't ice, that was just a heaved up piece of pavement I almost slipped on. We'll go this way. Try to zig our way back again now. And this is a nice clear looking sidewalk, which I appreciate. Unzip my jacket, I'm getting warm enough. Yeah, so I mentioned the Tangled Stars that I'm writing now. It's not really at all what I pictured when I first came up with the idea. A bit of a crook, bit of a con man, first person, and there's other parts that are written third person because first person just didn't give me the scope of scenes, viewpoints into scenes that I needed. So it's growing quite complex, and I also discovered that I hadn't thought through a few things, so I'm kind of feeling my way as I write it. It's going to mean a big revision process, but that's okay. I actually enjoy revision. I enjoy first draft too, but in some ways I enjoy revision more, taking that first draft and polishing it up. The book is due out in 2022 from DAW. So I've got some time, but not an infinite amount of time, despite it being set in infinite science fiction. I somehow lack both a time machine and an infinite amount of time. Funny that. Oh, that was clever. I just crossed the street and put myself in the path of a bigger puddle than if I'd stayed on the other side. And we'll zig again. I'm also going to have to start thinking about a short story for the anthology I'm kickstarting, because I'm writing one too. All I know about it is the name of one character, because somebody took what's called a Tuckerization, which is your name used as a character. And so I know that one of my characters will be named Sharon Sheffield. But other than that, I don't know anything about the story yet. I haven't thought about it. I do have a short story coming up in another Kickstarted anthology from Zombies Need Brain. Who runs that company is a fellow DAW author, and I've been asked to be an anchor author now on two of those anthologies. This one is it's called The Modern Deity's Guide to Surviving Humanity. So we each picked a deity, and I picked Nankezi, who's the Sumerian goddess of beer. And not too surprisingly, in the modern era, she runs a brew pub, but with some very special brews on tap. And the story is called Casey's. I'm looking forward to when that comes out. It's all through the editing process and everything, so just waiting for the book itself to be produced. Tuckerization, I've done a couple of times. Masks. My first book in my trilogy that I wrote is E.C. Blake, my fantasy trilogy, has a character in it, a friend of the girls. The girl she starts out very little, and we have a few scenes as she gets older. And for most of the book, she's 15. And there's a character named Mason, who's a good friend of hers, and became a major character. Really drives the plot along. I won't tell you what happens to him in the end, whether he survives or not. That would be a spoiler. But he's named after Mason Sontag, who I've known his mother and father for a long time. I've known him since he was a little kid. And he performed with my daughter and do it with Clash on People's Theater. And he's now off at Ithaca studying musical theater. Very talented young man. But he's also a character in my book. And I did that again. The Moonlit World has somebody in there who's named after a student at Luther, whose parents, Luther College High School, where my daughter went to high school. Her parents bought a Tuckerization at a fundraising event that I offered one at. I think the first time I did it was back when I was writing Magebane under the pseudonym Lee Arthur Chain. I won't go there because of the muddy. We'll go on up here another block. So there's a character in there where I sold a Tuckerization charity auction. I think it must have been at Conspec, which is a Edmonton science fiction convention. I was guest of honor, second choice, mind you. They called me in as guest of honor because Spider Robinson, who was supposed to be guest of honor, wasn't able to make it. Now, I've only been guest of honor at a convention twice. That was the first one. And then I was guest of honor at CanCon in Ottawa. I'm not at the kind of fame and fortune level where you regularly get asked to be a guest of honor at conventions. So, much like somebody nominated for an Academy Award, it was an honor just to be nominated. I guess the next book I know of to come out will be the mass market paperback of The Moonlit World, which is book 3 in my World Shaper series from Daw. It came out in in a trade paperback last fall, and it'll be out in mass market paperback this summer, August, I think. Trade paperbacks are the big ones, size of a hardcover but with soft covers, and mass market are the kinds you used to get on everywhere. That's why they're called mass market, on drugstore racks and things like that. There's still some of those around, but it's nothing like what it was. As with so many other things, I missed the best possible time to be published in mass market. That market was already dwindling when I first got published by Daw. And my first 3 books maybe, were just mass market originals. Masks was the first one that came out in hardcover. That whole trilogy came out in hardcover. Then Cityborn came out in a really nice hardcover. I really like that one. But the World Shapers books have all been in trade paperback as the market continues to evolve. The ones I published myself have been trade paperback, except that Amazon invited me to be part of a beta for producing hardcovers for books published through their KDP, Kindle Direct Publishing. And set up a hardcover for Shapers of Worlds, the first book, the sequel to which, or second volume of which, whatever you want to say, since they're anthologies, it's not really a sequel. I'm kickstarting now. And it turned out really well, but it was more work than I would have thought to make the change. There's Lakeview School again. We walked by a day or two ago. We went the other side. Because we're going to cross the same light we crossed at when I walked into Lakeview the other day. Yeah, I was surprised how much work I had to do to take my trade paperback and turn it into a hardcover. There has to be more wraparound on the front image because it has to go around the boards, and you can't have it too close to the spine because of the binding. There's that kind of, if you look at a hardcover, there's that kind of indentation that runs along the spine. You have to allow for that. But when I finally got a copy, and for whatever reason, Amazon would not ship a proof copy to Canada. So the only way I got to see a copy of it, and I wanted to make sure it looked okay, was to put it on sale, order a copy, full price, which I got. But where did it come from? It was printed in the States, exactly where the proof copy would have been printed. But Amazon wouldn't send me a proof copy, they'd only send me a purchase copy. So, just like the Lord, Amazon moves in mysterious ways, its wonders to perform. Anyway, somebody's already asked me for the current Kickstarter if Shapers of Worlds Volume 2 will be available in hardcover. I'm not building it into the Kickstarter, but I suspect when the time comes for the commercial release, when it will go on sale to bookstores and Amazon and all that, I think I will do a hardcover. They're all print on demand, so it's not like I'll have a huge stack of them cluttering up the house. Just however many I order to sell at, hopefully, in-person conventions this year. Here's the bridge, which we've crossed 3 or 4 times now with the camera. One convention there's 2 that I hope on in Ottawa would be in October. That's a great little convention, and often my editor and publisher from New York, Sheila Gilbert, has often come up there because there's so many DAW authors in Canada. Tanya Huff, Julie Shernada, Michelle Segura, others. And Gerald Brandt, we'll bring it to him. So I don't know about that's going to happen this year, but it'd be nice. And then World Fantasy Convention is in Montreal. And currently they're planning on an in-person convention with perhaps some online component. But I bought my membership and put in my name for programming there. I've always enjoyed World Fantasy. It's the one that's most writer heavy. There's very little costuming or anything like that, or media stuff. It's almost all focused on books. In fact, that's the last in-person convention I went to, was World Fantasy in Los Angeles in 2019. It wasn't exactly in the heart of the city. It was in an airport hotel. Although the airport's so big, we were still a long way from the airport, but it was an airport hotel. But it was a good event. I enjoyed it. And whenever you're there, if the DAW folk are there, they do a DAW dinner for their authors. It's always nice to eat in a fancy restaurant and talk with your fellow authors and your editor and publishers. It's nice. I guess my first one was first DAW dinner was at Denver Worldcon. Alice was 8. I said we'd be coming and bringing our daughter. Oh, well, it's a very grown-up event. And I basically said, well, Alice has been taken to grown-up events her whole life. She'll be fine. And she was. Also, really, and that was in the Brown Palace, in this wonderful private dining room that has historic wallpaper in it, of all things. The only other copy of this wallpaper is in the White House. And high-end restaurants are actually very good at catering to children, as has been pointed out. I think it's something we read. High-end restaurants cater to rich, spoiled people, so catering to a child is, right up their alley. They were very nice to Alice. She made an impression and has been discussing my cover art with my editor when she was, 12 or something. Yeah, she would have been about 12, because I think it was the Masks cover art they were talking about. And she had some informed opinions because, of course, she read young people's fiction. And although DAW doesn't have a young adult line, Masks is basically a young adult novel. 15-year-old protagonist, and has certainly been read as young adult. In fact, it was part of the Battle of the Books for a high school in California. I remember doing a video about it so they could show it at assembly. I thought that was cool. Still my best-selling book, Masks. And still available. Not so much in hardcover. I may have just about all that's left of that. E-books, of course, remain available. The long tail. So if you'd like to read it, please. Masks, Shadows, and Faces. The Masks of Agrima. Aygrima. Published by Daw Books. Written by E.C. Blake. E.C. Blake has been a guest host on the World Shapers podcast. In fact, I interviewed myself, or he interviewed me, sorry. I'll spoil the surprise there. And he sounds just like me, except he had a southern accent. He kind of talked like I did when we first moved up here from Texas. So he'd ask me the questions. And I had, you always ask other people, where do you get your ideas? I say, well, you see, it's like this. Had a lot of fun with that, and had a lot of people really enjoyed it. I know my editor and publisher, Sheila Gilbert at Daw, enjoyed it. The funny thing was that somebody I went to high school with happened to be at a signing I was doing at the chapters here in Regina, and had heard that. And he said, that E.C. Blake sounds a lot like you. Because he didn't know that was a pseudonym of mine. That was funny. People always ask why a pseudonym. It's just marketing. Edward Willett wrote science fiction novels. They wanted me to switch to fantasy, which was selling better. But they wanted me to use a different name, so there was no confusion. So I went and became Lee Arthur Chain, which is my oldest brother's middle name, Jimmy Lee Willett. My next brother's middle name, Dwight Arthur Willett. And my name, Edward Shane Willett, C-H-A-N-E. Makes a great pen name. So I wrote a book called Magebane. But then the next one was this almost YA trilogy, The Masks of Agrima. So I went with initials. EC are my initials. And then Blake is my nephew's middle name, Tory Blake Willett. Also, I wanted something earlier in the alphabet for when it's on a bookstore bookshelf in alphabetical order. Still didn't work. I still find it down on the bottom shelf. The B's, by the time you get to the B's, you're already on the bottom shelf. The W's for sure. So I wrote that trilogy as E.C. Blake, and then The City Born, my next one, was back to science fiction, and I went back to my real name, which was nice. And the World Shapers, which read like fantasy but are actually science fiction backstory, are also by Edward Willett. All right, here we are coming up again to Retallick and Angus Crescent, and we will use once more the stop sign as an appropriate place to bring today's walk to a close. Thank you for watching, and I plan to keep doing this, hopefully with a better mic one of these days. Bye for now.